What's up, guys? YGO Strats. We're going to be talking about the July 2015 ban list. I guess the July 16th, 2015 ban list to get technical. We're going to talk about what our thoughts are of it, what it did right, what it did wrong, how it can be better, all that nonsense. So let's get right into it. Start things off. We're going to take a look at the banned cards and why they are banned. So, two cards were banned: Djinn, Releaser of Rituals, and lavalval Chain. We're going to start with Djinn. I think it's pretty obvious why this card was banned. Konami has said that they want to start bringing back all types of summoning methods and all that sort of thing back into the game, including Ritual Fusion, Exceed, Synchro, and now Pendulum. They want to have a super diverse formats, I'm guessing. So, having something that only one of those can use to shut down the game for the opponent in terms of Ritual getting Djinn to block special summoning, it just makes sense. People argued, I think I mentioned in my other video, that, you know, if you just hit cycle to 1, you don't need to hit the Djinn lock. And yeah, that fixes it for Necroz, but if the next Ritual archetype comes out and it's also super busted, and they also have Djinn, then it's the same problem again in a different deck. So in terms of hitting Djinn, I think it's just the right move if they're going to continue to put out Ritual decks that are competitive and consistent. So the second card banned was lavalval Chain, and that's the card that's bringing up the most controversy, so to say. There's a lot of takes on whether or not this card should have been banned or limited or what, if it was even deserving of a hit at all, and we're going to take a look at that. So first off, reasons that you can see why it was banned, why it should be banned. It's foolish on steroids, because not only does it send any monster to the grave, it sends any card from the deck to the grave. And you might be like, well, who the hell's sending a spell or trap? You know, Volcanic could send their Blaze Accelerated Reload, UA could send something like UA Penalty Box, that sort of thing, and you might say, like, that's not too important in terms of the metagame. You can also do that with, like, the new BLS Ritual cards, those cards that activate, get effects in the graveyard that can just help you out for setting up your combos and your plays. It is a viable thing, and the farther in we get into this game with more cards and effects that have effects in the graveyard, be they monster, spell, or trap, lavalval gets them there to do that. Like, if you send Breakthrough Skill, you can effect Veiler it. If you send Shadow Dragon, you can pop something, pop a spell or trap card. So the card acts as an MST, it can be an effect Veiler. Volcanics use it as a Regeki. If you send like Shadow Beast, you can use it to draw a card. There's so many things you can do depending on what it is you send, and because it can send anything, any effect that's going off of the graveyard is going off thanks to lavalval Chain. So it's not only Foolish Burial, it's Foolish Burial plus. It's just so much more in any combo piece you want it to be. Like I said, the farther you get in the game, the more of a problem that could prove to be. So I can see why they might want to hit it there. It also will stack the deck, which is always just helpful. Volcanics do that. And Foolish Burial isn't 1, so on that merit alone, you could argue that lavalval Chain should be at 1. If Foolish, the spell version is, the versatile rank 4 toolbox version should also be limited. Like, that just makes sense. Other things to note about it, it's in like every FTK ever, I swear to God. So the problem is it can thin your deck down, it can stack up for what you might want to draw or something. It's such a degenerate thing. The blue-blooded Oni OTK uses it. Almost every Northern FTK that you see is going to use it. And I mean, it's been around for so long. Like, Infernities were spamming it. It's clearly been like an issue card for a long time, and it's kind of interesting that only now is it being discussed. And then finally, you've got stuff like Clownblade coming up, which is rank 4 spam engine galore. So I can easily see why they want that hit or gone before that happens, just to kind of stop that deck before it goes off. But on the other hand, lavalval Chain helps out so many rogue decks like Volcanic, UA, Battlein Boxer, Noble Knights like to use it. There's just so many decks that, yeah, it's being stupid in these FTK decks, but it's helping those rogue decks compete by helping them to set up their slower combos. And it's so helpful to rogue decks that losing it really hurts them. That's really all there is to say about why it shouldn't be banned. It's just like, it's such a great combo piece, and it does, like, it helps out so many combos and creative thinking, like, what can I send, what can I stack, how can I make this card work in my deck thanks to lavalval Chain. It definitely does help with like creative processes in deck building, which I'm gonna miss him, to be honest. It's just, it helps you be creative in the game. And yeah, I mean, I can see why it's banned. I'm not gonna argue that it shouldn't be banned, but I will say that I'd like it to be limited with an errata, just to say that you can only use 1 effect per turn and only once per turn. I think that solves the problem. That's all anyone wants to do with it, other than like Infernities, but without Archfiend, they're not a threat in that sense anyways, really. That's what I'd like, but nothing gets an errata unless the OCG version gets an errata, and lavalval is not banned in the OCG, so that's not happening. We can pray for a retained version for the rogue decks, but in terms of what the card is doing, I fully understand its banning and why it happened, and I'll begrudgingly agree with it, even though I do wish it it would be limited. So that eats up the majority of this video in terms of what actually happened on the ban list, I believe. For the limited, we had Shuret of Necroz and Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, the Synchro one. Shuret is the only meta card that got hit in any way, meaning that Necroz is a competitive deck and they lost a card. That's the only hit to the metagame that happened. This ban list did not change much of our competitive game in any sense. Like, I think the only thing that's going to be different now is, beyond obviously no Jinlock, is people are going to start having to use the cycle play last instead of mirror or something to that effect. I don't understand Necroz fully enough to know, but I believe they're going to have to do it in a different order, and they're going to have to really either recycle the Shuret or play it much more smarter. So in any sense, it just made the Necroz mirror match more skilled, and it made Necroz players have to think a bit more before committing to things. For the Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, I supported this coming back to 1 because I thought, why not? Let's just see what it does. Inferno You Synchro is not here. Keep it at 1 so that it's not, you know, spamming Trishula 9 times per turn, or that's kept at a minimum at the very least. I think this should be definitely a 1 or none card, and I'm just glad to see them trying stuff out like this, just to see if we can help the metagame be a little more diverse and whatnot. In the semi-limited category, you've got Dragoons, Atlantean Dragoons, and Dragoonity Ravine, is what I like to call it, Dragon's Ravine. Really, that's just great. Just get your Mermail and your Dragoonity players back up. You know, you got 1 more Searcher, and you can actually play Dragoonity now with 2 Ravine because, yeah, it's not as optimal as 3, but let's be real, that'll happen next list, and you can still use 3 Terraforming, 2 Ravine. That's not an issue. In terms of unlimited, I don't really have much to say. I think everything that got unlimited could be unlimited because they're not making an impact. You're really only going to play 1 Glow Up Bulb, or at the very least only get 1 of its effects anyway, so I find in most decks it's going to be a 1 or none anyways, regardless if you've got it at 1 or 3. And then things like Sacred Sword of the 7-star, Dark Strike Fighter, Sinister Serpent, Temple of the King, and Exchange of Spirit, they're all doing nothing for anyone really. I think Temple of the King's made 1 FTK more likely nowadays. I don't know the FTK off the top of my head. I saw some people talking about it earlier, something about Bubble Man and obnoxiousness, but not looking forward to that. But I don't think many people know about it, so forget it, not an issue. And that's really all that the ban list did by itself. So what I'm going to get into now is the things we wish it did and the things that it really should do. Konami's list was not very long. There's not many cards on it, and in terms of actual impact to the metagame, like I said, there's the Jinlock gone, the lavalval gone, Necroz lost Shuret down to 1, and Trishula is back. Dragoonity and Mermail aren't going to continue to do anything that they weren't doing before, I would say. Maybe you'll see a few more Dragoonity, but they're not going to do too much competitively. So really the only thing that's happened is the Jinlock's gone, and we've got little more thought process going into our Necroz matches in terms of playing Necroz anyways. And that's it. It's interesting to see them hit so little, and it's interesting to see them hit Shuret at all. Like, I would have thought for sure they'd hit Necroz a Unicorn just to kill the recycling, but this kind of helps in that it kills the spamming of any monster they want. They have to really think, is it worth putting the Shuret into the Valk to summon it and draw 2, or do I want to save it for like a Trishula or something? But Trishula is easy enough to banish Brio and Colossalus for, so it's adding that thought process. I'm not going to complain that that got hit, because the deck definitely needed something. When you're topping like 50% of all tournaments, you definitely need to be hit, so I won't complain about that. But what's interesting is the lack of hits to everything else, because in terms of the big 5, I'd tell you, you've got Klee, Burning Abyss, Shadow, Tellers, and Necroz. Those are like the 5 biggest and most consistent decks. Yes, you've got Ritual Beast, yes, you've got things like Yosenju or Volcanics here and there, but they're not as prominent as those 5. And the fact that Necroz was the only thing that got hits really interesting to me. Like, Shadow have got off scot-free for like so long now, and playing Shadows, I don't care. I'm like, absolutely don't do that. But in reality, I would not mind too much having, you know, El Shaddoll Fusion or El Shaddoll Construct hit in some form, just to the terms of balancing the game. And it's interesting to see that they didn't, but the reasoning for why they didn't do anything might be because of the fact that they've said, we want to do more of an adaptive list, and we don't have them set in form one way or the other. They want to have an evolving list, meaning they're going to hit problem cards when they come out. Because there were a lot of cards that people thought they should hit that they didn't even touch. That's interesting to note. Namely, there was no preemptive banning of Royal Magic Library. There was no limiting of Instant Fusion, and Royal Magic Library is going to be hitting up FTKs left, right, and center, particularly with Chicken Race coming out, and Instant Fusion and Norden has been a known thing for like a year now at least, so it's pretty obvious why people want the Instant Fusion hit to 1. If they are doing an adaptive list like they're saying, where they're going to put it out here and there, one of the reasons you might have seen so few hits on this particular list is that Worlds are coming up towards the end. I believe Worlds are taking place someplace in early to mid-August, so they don't want to hit the list because it's going to change what people are playing at Worlds. You know, Shadow won European, and Hero Deck won in the OCG, and OCG had no changes to its list, and we've had, you know, pretty much none. If anything, we've got Trish up with their Trish, so everyone can run Trish now, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I think the reason they're doing this is they want to keep it as static as they can for the Worlds list. This way, when you go into Worlds, everyone who's playing their decks will be able to continue to play the same decks they took to the tournaments and play to the best of their ability. And then after that happens, you might see a huge list come afterwards. You might be like, well, Worlds is done, and let's check the ban list. Oh, look, they fucking murdered Shadow and Cleaford, and they smacked Tellers and Burning Abyss a bit, and this and that, and whatever. That might happen. They might just want to keep it the same for Worlds, and then go banana sandwich on these cards. As for my thoughts as to what an evolving list will be like for the game, I can see the pros and cons of it. Obviously, when Norden comes out and Instant Fusion starts ruining people's lives, I'm not going to complain when that drops to 1. If they are waiting for Norden to come out to hit Instant Fusion, that's good. I know, like, Madolche decks, some heroic decks, there are things that like to play Instant Fusion. Constellars might like to play it to get that level 5 Panzer Dragon, I believe it is, to go into an easy play at ease. So there are decks that like Instant Fusion that are going to be affected when it goes to 1, and they might just be letting us keep that for the time being, which is nice. I'd like that, but it's happening whether we want it to or not. And I kind of like that, but at the same time I don't, because, you know, lose one turn is like a $35-ish card, and it comes out, and everyone who wants to play any deck that is more control oriented just goes out and gets it, and people are going to buy a playset of 3, 35 each. That's like $105 you've dropped on 3 cards. And then it turns out, you know, lose one turn's really a problem card, and Konami's adaptive ban list is going to hit it. And so you got $105 worth of your singles, and then 2 weeks later it's at 1, and you wasted, you know, $70, and you're like, well, that's just fantastic. And I can see that turning players off of the game, because at least when there's that set ban list every 3 months, I know when I get, example, lose one turn, I'm safe with my lose one turn for 3 months, or however long until the end of the format. And that's kind of, you know, a nice safety in it. I held off on buying cards before the ban list was announced because I had no idea what might get hit or what could get hit, and that's a nice comfort in that I can hold off, and this is what's going to happen on this date or in and around this date, and I'm safe. Or, you know, hey, that just happened and this card's good, I can buy it and I can use it for the next 3 months of playing. That's fantastic. I like that. Obviously an adaptive ban list is going to change it, so I'm a little torn on that. I would really personally just prefer our 3 months. I mean, yeah, Instant Fusion's going to be a pain for a long time with that, but I'd rather have Instant Fusion being a pain than, you know, dropping $100 on Great Card. Like, if they put Trick Clown as a secret rare and people go out and buy Trick Clowns and all that shit, and there's just like $50 a card and you drop 100 for 2 or 150 for 3, whatever it is you're doing, and it's just like, well, I got $150 here, I can't wait to win, and the next day gone, I'm gonna be so pissed. I'm gonna be like, well, screw this, I'm not committing to this game. I'm not gonna play meta, because if I'm not constantly topping tournaments or doing well enough in them to merit, you know, competing constantly, why would I want to do that? So yeah, it's a bit torn. That's kind of our analysis on the ban list. In general, I think what I'd like to see done is just what I said in my ban list prediction video. I think Mistake might have to go to 1 in terms of just a floodgate card. You never know. There's no surprise that lose one turn wasn't hit, because it's lose one turn and it's way too new. They don't hit that while it's still making their money. Crossed Souls is the newest set, and, you know, I'd like to see things like Denko should be hit. I personally believe that that card is just kind of enabling OTKs like nothing, and that's not what I want for the game per se, or at least in the sense that it shuts down so many things. Like, if you're playing back row, there's so many players who just set 4 and end, and while that's pretty bad, I'd rather have, you know, Feather Duster or Heavy Storm in there to let me get rid of them than playing Denko and be like, well, all those 4 cards are effectively useless because you cannot even activate them unless it's something like Solemn Warning. That's kind of our look, my look at the 2016 July 16th, 2015 ban list, pardon me. No end date in sight. Like I said, it might just be an evolving list. You might get smacked hard after Worlds happens. You might not. It might not have anything happen until September. But until that time, all we can do is live with it and try not to cry too much if you really do miss lavalval chain, or if you get Trishula'd by OG Trishula. So, thank you for watching, guys. Leave a comment. Tell us what you think. Do you think that an evolving ban list is better or worse? How do you feel about lavalval, or an errated lavalval, or, you know, like a not actually lavalval but a new Exceed that does the same damn thing but super watered down, sort of like Fishborg Blaster got one, and like Fishborg Gunman or something nonsense. I don't know. They're typical watered down nonsense that they'll give us. So yeah, what do you think about that? And thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and we'll see you next time on YGO Strats.